In this video, we're going to use Autopsy to search for a specific file that we think may be malicious based on the file name. And in general, when you're doing forensic analysis, you want to try to do everything within the forensics analysis tool, especially if you're dealing with potentially malicious software, because if you export the software to your forensic workstation, if you export it from the tool, then of course it could infect your workstation if you're not very careful. So in general, we try to do everything within the analysis tool and then use hashes instead of the actual file to do an assessment on if it's known malware or not. In this case, the data source we're going to use is maryville_malware.e01. So if you are following along with Autopsy, you'll need to create a new case and add that particular data source or piece of evidence. It is a in-case image file. The first thing we're going to do is search for the name of a file we think is malicious. So I'm going to click on keyword search. We're going to do an exact match because we know the specific name of the file. In this scenario, the file is rptsvc32.exe. I'll click on search in a second here. So the whole idea is we have got word that this particular image may contain this file, which we suspect is malicious. So we want to validate that. So I'm going to click on search. And we want to look for the executable or .exe. So we see it is referenced in quite a few locations here. If we scroll down though, we should eventually get to the file itself. And there it is, rptsvc32.exe. We know this is an executable because it has this message here. This program must be run under Win32. That's typically what's part of an executable, along with these sections here. So what we want to look at is the file metadata. So the metadata, as you remember, is data about data. And what we're interested in, if we scroll down, is this hash value for MD5. So I can double click on that and highlight it, then use Control-C to copy it. And I'm going to see if this file is malicious according to a well-known internet site that indexes pretty much all malicious software based on a number of vendors. So let's go to your browser. I've already copied that hash, so it's in my clipboard. We're going to go to a site called virustotal.com, virustotal.com. And VirusTotal is a really good site because you can either upload a file, you can look at a URL, or you can search based on the hash value of the file, which is what I recommend because you don't actually have to touch the malware or potential malware. You just look at the hash value. What VirusTotal will do with the hash is compare it against all the known signatures for different anti-malware vendors. So I'm going to hit highlight this window here for the search, do Control-V to paste the hash. And again, if I move up here, this is the hash value of the file we are looking at. So right there's the hash value. That file is the rptsvc32.exe. I minimize Autopsy there. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit enter here for VirusTotal, and we see that 25 out of 56 right there anti-malware vendors think this particular file is malicious. And if this will show you, if we scroll down here, each of these with the red exclamation point, these are the vendors that think it's malicious and what that vendor has called it. As an example, Clam Antivirus or Clam AV calls it win.trojan.raw POS-1. So POS is typically point of sale, so this might have to deal with a point of sale piece of malware. Here's malware bytes, trojan.pos memdump. So quite a few of these called a Trojan, and they reference it as memdump like this one, and they reference POS. So we can kind of infer that this is probably a Trojan. It probably dumps memory and is probably deals with point-of-sale machines. These other ones down here, if we scroll down, if they say clean, that means these anti-malware vendors do not think it's malicious. So like AVG does not consider it malicious. And there's a lot more you can do with VirusTotal. It'll show you the MD5 hash here, the SHA-1 hash as well, and a few other bits of information. We're not going to go into great detail on VirusTotal because this is not a malware analysis class, but we do have a pretty good indication that this is malicious because almost half of the anti-malware vendors determined that this is malicious. So let's go back to Autopsy here. So now we know this file is malicious. We can also look at its location on the computer. So I can maximize Autopsy. So this first file, there's actually two rpt-svc32.exes, and let's check if they have the same hash. So the first one ends in bb49. The second one ends in, let's go to file metadata, bb49. So it's the same file but in two different locations. If we scroll over, we see this first location is under my documents, malware, raw POS, and then the file name. The second one is under my documents, binary collection, rpt-svc32.exe. So in this video, we briefly covered how to search for a particular file. You can also look at views here and look at file types by extension. Now that we've found that this file is on here, we can view it. So we can look at executable files, and we can sort by the name. And this will show us all the executable files in the system. So that one will show up here. It's just another view of the same information. So here's the two we just looked at. So it's exactly the same stuff. But at this point, in this case, we're looking at all the executable files. So as I mentioned in the video, we were able to search for a particular file. We could have, instead of using a keyword search, we could have browsed through all the executables. Since we know it's an executable and sorted by the name, that's another alternative. Once we did that, we looked at the file metadata. We determined the hash, the MD5 value, and we copied that using Control-C. There's not an easy way to right-click and copy. And we pasted that value into VirusTotal to figure out if it's malicious. And VirusTotal told us it was malicious.